What up, PCG casuals? It's Pretty Casual Gaming with me, Tehnoobcake, and with me as always is Slanderman.
Hello, everyone.
For this week's podcast, we are planning to do a Resident Evil 8 podcast, which was Slenderman's choice, and thus he will be holding the reins, so to speak, this patch. So, at your lead, Slendy.
Okay. The first thing I actually want to talk about is what do we know of Resident Evil and what does the game basically means. For me and for Noobcake and probably for everyone else who are listening as well. Because the game has had a lot of different changes from fixed camera angles to third person to first person and everything. So basically what Resident Evil means, like when I hear the word Resident Evil, I think about it's a BOWs, as in bioorganic weapons. That is the main focus of the game. Where I think Noobcake might have some different opinion about what Resident Evil is. Don't you?
Yes, for me, Resident Evil at its core, what I've loved about Resident Evil pretty much stems to the first three games, and that would be zombies, really. Like, obviously, you had the biochemical weaponries with stuff like Nemesis and Mr. X, but the focus was more still the zombies.
Yeah.
Actually, playing the Resident Evil 8 demo has sort of changed my opinion on that, because for the longest time I thought of the zombies, and my brain would put 1 all the way through to 6, and the way I've seen it is from 7 onwards is it's changed too much for me to like it. But playing through 8, I started to realise very much the similarities between it and 4. And then when in my brain I was like, wait, it's been like this for ages. What am I on about? Like, 4 onwards particularly is where it started to kind of taper off the zombie kind of idea.
Yep.
And you still sort of have the zombies there, but it's very different. But yeah, for me, like my 2 favorite Resident Evils of all time are 1 and 3, and obviously the zombies are a big thing in both of them.
Yeah.
But what I see as Resident Evil prior to playing the demo, and what I see as Resident Evil now, having played the demo and thinking back properly and actually taking the time to consider it for the podcast, has actually helped shift my perspective of the whole franchise, really.
Yeah. I have nearly played all of them. I think there's like a few PlayStation exclusives I haven't. And what brings me back is that the themes for all the games are more or less bioweapons. Of course, there's some like the zombies reappearing in all the first 3 games, and Code Veronica, and a bit in 6 as well. But let's not talk too much about 6. But in Resident Evil 4 to 5 and 6, it was still bioweapons, but it was like in form of a parasite instead. And 7 and 8 is a bit like I wouldn't call it a complete parasite, but it functions in the same way in some sort. So it still takes control, but it seems and feels a bit different compared to the parasites from the game 4, 5, and 6.
One of the things that I'd say that I've noticed most with 7 and 8, again through the demo and perspective, is it's less so much about what's changed about the enemies, and it's more what's changed about the character you play. Because obviously prior to 7, you played Jake in 6, you had Chris and Leon throughout 1 to 5, you had Jill, and all of them were really well-trained specialists, really.
Yep.
Whereas Ethan is just basically a civilian. Like, I know there's meant to be some fucking training he's meant to have gone through between 7 and 8, but he's still at core level a civilian. Like, he isn't Chris. He isn't Leon.
No, he's not.
And I think that's the big shift in how we see the game, is actually less so what the enemy is and more we as the player are experiencing because of the level of skill that our character has, really.
And another thing I think, which basically says it is a Resident Evil game, is the inventory management. It is messy, clunky as it's been in all the games. The difference is in Resident Evil 8, it is more like Resident Evil 4, where you basically have a bigger inventory, which is more like for your weapons and personal items, as in healing items and grenades and so on, compared to the normal to the other games where you basically shared all of your items. You had your keys in your inventory together with all the others, so it could quickly get out of hand if you needed to go somewhere to open a chest, or you had to put them back. But like I said, what I feel like Resident Evil 8 is taken very much from is Resident Evil 4 with the inventory, the village setting, and the castle areas as well. Were you about to say something?
Yeah, one of the things I noticed the most about playing it through the demo is that, which is a big disclaimer I should probably say to anyone watching, is I haven't actually played the full game of 8. I've only played the demo. And I've watched a few YouTubers who are playing through it, so I haven't seen all of it because obviously their videos are coming out at a steady pace, so I haven't actually managed to see, whereas Slandy's actually finished the game already.
3 times.
But just from the demo itself, the perspective I got was Resident Evil 4 meets Bloodborne. If you've ever played Bloodborne or seen it about that whole like the gothic kind of architecture, and even the way some of the bosses looked, and werewolves, obviously.
Yeah.
It very much was like a Resident Evil and Bloodborne game kind of mated and had a kid.
I haven't played Bloodborne, but I actually have heard people talking about that some of the enemies did feel like it had a Bloodborne influence. Especially one of the guys, the
hammer.
Yeah, the hammer person. When I basically saw him the first time, I was thinking Bloodborne, even if I haven't played the game, but I have seen the characters on Twitch and stuff. So, and he resembled a bit of a Bloodborne type for me there already.
Yeah.
So apart from that, I would actually say that there might be coming some spoilers for people ahead of now, in case you are a bit scared, if you don't want to get spoiled too much about the game and the story and stuff. So
we'll try and include timestamps so people can miss the bits that they need to.
Yes, precisely. So the game is called Village, and that area is a huge part of the game. You did try the Village demo, right?
I did. On the demo I had, there was an option between Village and Castle, and you could do both of them. I don't know if it was like the whole Village gameplay, but I had like 30 minutes of gameplay in the Village itself.
Yeah.
And I think I ended up with about 12 minutes in the Castle.
Okay. Well, the demo's Village was pretty linear to some extent. You could, of course, explore a few houses here and there, but the area was kind of limited. But how the game actually functions is that you return to that the entire village a few times after each like main I would call it boss castles areas where you basically you start at the village, you go to one of the boss areas, then you return to the village, you go to a new boss area, and then you return to the village again. You do that a few times. And the village does seem to be the central, like a central hub for all of the areas. So you go back and forth. And like I said, with the castles, the boss areas, or basically the environment for the bosses changes each time. Like the castle Quest 2. I butchered that. But that is like
everyone's big crush lady, you mean?
Yeah, basically. That is basically a giant castle. Actually, when I played that first time, I felt a bit like when I got into the mansion first time in Resident Evil, where you had the stairs going upstairs to the second floor and everything. So that brings back a little bit of the first game for me in that sense of the locations.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When I saw the castle from the central room in the demo, I got the whole mansion from Resident Evil 1 vibe.
Yep. So, but yeah, there's like 4 to 5 areas. I would call the boss environments, which is pretty important when you go back and forth between the village and the areas. So, like with we have 4 areas. Like I said, the castle. Then we have like a massive what is called a watery swamp thingy.
A marsh.
Yeah. And that area is basically have like what do you call it? Just a lot of the environment is like it's watery and slippery, and the boss is actually a giant fish thing as well. So if that is like to translate it all into one category of a team inside one of the boss areas. And like with another one is a factory where there's a lot of metal pieces lying around, and he has one of the bosses also have a large metal hammer, and everything about him translates pretty well into that factory area as well. So I would say the areas just fits the boss teams as well. So
I mean, that's a very big gaming cliche, is that the areas around the bosses are always kind of themed to them.
Yeah, precisely. And like another one is like it's a puzzle area with some spooks in it, and there's just a lot of dolls, and the boss itself is a doll as well. While you're figuring out the puzzles and so on, you will be getting spooked and so on as well. So so what I'm trying to say is that the areas is like trying to fit the bosses teams as well. So apart from like the areas, I would actually talk about the weapons, like just basically gameplay, because the weapons, the inventory and gunplay is like they're pretty what is called together, because the gunplay is first person, like still from Resident Evil 7, but with some more weapons to choose from.
I heard from some people that it's a bit more action than 7 was.
Yeah, it is. It is a bit more action packed, and I think that is also why they went with like a bit more like werewolf types enemies to make it a bit more fast paced compared to Resident Evil 7, where it was a bit more slow paced in the fights, I would say, compared to Resident Evil 8. And there is a lot of different weapons in the game as well, from sniper rifles to hand cannons, like magnums and so on, and assault rifles, pistols, and so on as well. So the next topic I would like go in about a bit as well is like, what horror does this game bring, and is it like full-fledged horror? Because I personally wouldn't say it is.
No, obviously I haven't played the full game, but from what I've seen of it mostly, it's less horror and it's more jump scares, which for me is like, I actually liked the look of Resident Evil 8, I'll be honest, compared to what I did at 7. Like, from playing the demo,
Yeah,
there was a certain level of, well, if this ever comes on offer, or someone gets me it, or my housemate gets it and I get to play it, I'd play it. It looked like a fun game that I could enjoy, at least for a single gameplay thingy. But yeah, I don't think Resident Evil, compared to like the early days, Resident Evil's kind of lost the horror. The more it's pushed into the biochemical and less of the like necromantic kind of stuff like zombies and that. And I think a big thing is the camera angles of Resident Evil 1, for instance, were very good for that build-up of horror, because it was sort of jumpy, but it was a tense kind of thing. You would tense, and then the jump scare happened. It was build up to result. Whereas for Resident Evil 8, it very much in the demo felt just. I was on mic to a friend at the time that I was playing it, and I just like, oh fucking god, and they'd be like, what happened? And I was like, oh, it's just something fucking made me jump. But like the instant it stopped, it ended the jump scare, I was over it. It wasn't horror. It was just jump, next jump, and it wasn't actual horror. For some people, they like that, but for me, very much, if I was to play Resident Evil and be like, oh yeah, I'm playing this for the horror aspects, it would fail on every level for me.
Yeah.
Though the themes are very good.
Yep. Yeah, as when I played it, I felt like I didn't catch the whole horror experience I wanted to compared to other people. The only place I actually felt was a bit creepy and like was the dollhouse, which I heard from a lot of people as well. But apart from that, I personally didn't feel like I got the spooks like I did in Resident Evil 7 and the others that I can remember of as well in the same way. So
I think personally it's like the cost of the gameplay. The faster pace or the more actiony you make a game, the less of a horror it becomes.
Yep.
Because horror is very much about build up to result.
It is.
And you need that like tenseness. And it's why, to put as just an example, a game like Subnautica, despite it's not a horror game, but the way they do horror is very good. It's not just immediately you're attacked by a Leviathan, and then it's gone. There's that very much the tense build up of like, where is it? When's it coming to get me? And then it comes to get it.
Yeah.
And so I think the more actiony and faster pace you make a game, the less you cost of the horror.
Yeah. Apart from just like talking about horror, I feel like some areas in the game I played it on the hardest difficulty, which would make me. It made me really think about, should I skip this group of enemies in front of me to save my ammo, or should I just blast through them and hope I had my ammo for the next boss fight or the next group, or in that sense, it gave me I wouldn't call it an horror experience, but it gave me the sense of like being in a troubled state where I had to consider my options of what I can do and what consequences it had to be followed with. And I did that a lot of times during my playthrough because I did have to save my ammo. I needed to make sure I could kill the bosses I met and everything. So in that sense, it could be like, what would you call it? A tense horror feeling, or because I was scared that I wouldn't have ammo or health or everything what would be coming for me next time if I went in and did like if I cleared that area. I was scared that I wouldn't have the resources I need to continue next time, and so on. In that sense, apart from that, I wouldn't go too much into the horror elements of the game. I think they should be experienced. So we do have a few extra game modes for the game as well. One is a multiplayer game, which actually got delayed a bit. That is just basically a team deathmatch with a lot of favorable characters from the game. I did try the beta, so what I tried of the demo was the police station from Resident Evil 2, and it was just like team deathmatch where you fight other players and you could choose your character. And when the biggest twist of that game was if you died, you had a second chance to keep your kill streak going on for a bit longer, because you would turn into one of the BOWs in the game. So that would be either Nemesis, Mr. X, or Jack Baker from Resident Evil 7, or one of the Mulder ones from Resident Evil 7 as well. There was not anything in the demo from Resident Evil 8 in the beta, so I can't actually say what will be coming from Resident Evil 8 in the game, but I actually have a feeling that's why it got delayed as well, because they probably didn't want to spoil the game in that sense of what people could expect from it. And then the game also has the famous mercenary mode, which got introduced in Resident Evil 3 for the first time. Basically what that game mode is, you have a few area stages in the game where you just have to survive by a time limit and kill as many enemies as possible in that area. And when you basically have killed this set amount of enemy, you can continue to the next level.
So kind of like a horde mode.
Yeah, basically. There are some small twists. You can like find some orbs to increase your time and get some bonus abilities and so on. And the better you are at killing the enemies, the NPCs in a row, will bring some kind of combo streak for you as well. So the game basically have a small leaderboard, and how you get that bigger is by combining it with all those combo streaks you do. So in that sense, and between this, the areas and stages, you will get back to the merchant. Then and there you can upgrade your weapons and so on briefly, and you can decide what you want to do. If you want to buy more ammo, or if you want to buy a new weapon, or something like that. So yeah. The next part is probably the biggest spoilers in this podcast, because we'll be talking about the story here a bit.
So for those of you who don't want spoilers, just skip to the part where it says end.
Yes.
Because we'll have a few announcements before, obviously, we shut the video off.
Yeah. So for the story, it takes place three years after the first game. Not the first game. It's the seventh game.
The first in this little story that they're trying to do.
Yep. Like, if you actually take a look at Resident Evil, it feels like the first 3 games is pretty much connected to each other, and 4 to 5, 6 is actually a bit apart from each other, but they still kept the gameplay quite similar in that sense. With third person, and it turned a bit more action-y and stuff. And with Resident Evil 7 and 8, they are kind of trying to like continue the same story they got from Resident Evil 7 and expand on it. So like I said, the game takes place 3 years after Resident Evil 7, and the main person, Ethan, has finally settled down in a small house with his wife, and they have this lovely newborn. And with that, they basically get invaded by the ones who are supposed to be protecting them.
Chris.
Yeah, by Chris Redfield himself, which is one of the most famous Resident Evil persons in the franchise.
Best.
Yeah, he's the best.
Leon, eat your heart out.
But yeah, he basically invades the home which he actually put them in and everything, and you as the main character, Ethan, doesn't know why and everything, so you are basically dragged out of the house, and Ethan shoots your wife, and you have no clue what is going on at all. And during the transport,
I'm assuming you mean Chris shoots the wife. You said Ethan.
Oh, yeah, Chris shoots the wife. And doing as you're being dragged out and transported away and everything, the vehicle is basically attacked, and you wake up a bit outside the village, and all the team Chris brought with him, and those who were supposed to like drive you to a new spot, basically got killed. So you basically head out and try to find your daughter in this village, and it is there you find out that your beautiful, lovely newborn baby is being used for some sick and twisted things in that village. So throughout the game, you will learn a bit about the enemies, the bosses, which is Mother Miranda. She is like the head of everything. She is the big bad.
From what I've read about it, because I obviously I've not played the game, but I took some interest in the lore at least.
Yeah.
Mother Miranda is meant to be the person who kind of taught the original founder of Umbrella about all this stuff that eventually leads on to all the like T viruses and stuff.
Yep.
So it kind of loops back around to the beginning in a way.
It does, and you basically learn that Mother Miranda is a person who have been teaching the head researcher and founder of Umbrella. So Oswald E. Spencer, he is the person who founded Umbrella in the past Resident Evil games, and together with two others, I can't remember who they are again, but that doesn't matter. But you find out that Oswald E. Spencer has been a medical student for Mother Miranda, and he basically writes a letter to her that he had found this virus and he wanted to actually create a new company with the intent of changing the world. And he basically tries that with the T virus, which results in the franchise beginning, more or less. And Mother Miranda, she has a different view of everything compared to Oswald E. Spencer. She basically wants to be able to resurrect a dead person, just like making that person return to life again. And she basically finds out that that the area she is in has this mold from Resident Evil 7. It is being the location the game is being played upon is like the home for that mold being. And since Ethan was in Resident Evil 7, he basically took up the mold from Resident Evil 7, which was in Louisiana. And he got those properties still with him when they got the newborn, and so the baby got all of the good older stuff for itself, and that is why Mother Miranda wants the child to being able to resurrect the dead again with the mold. So in that sense is how Resident Evil 8 and 7 is connected. And you basically also learn that Ethan so if you played Resident Evil 7, you basically know that Ethan, he had his good share of injuries. He got his hand cut off and it was attacked back to his arm again, and he had a screwdriver going through his hand. He basically lost his leg as well, and it got attacked back again and everything. You basically learn how all of those injuries didn't affect him because he was infected with the mold from Resident Evil 7. So at the start of Resident Evil 7, the 10 first minutes to 20 minutes, you meet Jack Baker and you fight Mia and everything. And basically what happens at that spot is that Jack Baker kills Ethan. And Ethan is then infected with the mold, which makes him having those regeneration abilities, so he doesn't die there at all. And in Resident Evil 7, you learn that the mold is from this village the game is being played on. And basically at the end, which is you basically see that Ethan loses his heart. It's being dragged out of his body, and he basically dies in front of. Basically dies, I should say.
Till the next game.
Yeah, basically dies in front of Mother Miranda as she drags out his heart, and he just collapses on the ground, and then you actually turn into a Chris Redfield section of the game where you basically starts a small invasion on the village itself to find the place of the molds, like the place where its heart is, and he basically finds that, and he destroys it and everything. But before he destroys it, he finds Mia in a locked cellar, and Mia basically tells everything to Chris about how Ethan is and what happened to him in Resident Evil 7. And while Chris is saying everything there, Ethan is actually being resurrected again without a heart and everything. His body is basically just mold inside. And he actually takes up the fight to Mother Miranda as he saves his child before she's going to be used as a vessel for Mother Miranda's own dead child. And when Mother Miranda dies, you basically see Chris and Ethan leaving the area, and this heart region of the mold just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. It basically tries to stop Chris and Ethan from getting away. So what Ethan basically does is he takes the detonator that Chris planted earlier at the heart, and he pushes Chris away, and then you basically see that the molded makes a dome around the entire village where Chris is just pushed out of range. And then you just see that Chris and Rose, the daughter, walks away slowly while looking at Ethan, where he just slowly walks into this dome and slowly disappears. And then the next scene is that you actually see Chris, Mia, and Rose sitting in a plane flying away, and then a big explosion happens. Oof. And you see it from Ethan's eyes, if I remember right, that how his body is slowly being ruined by the mold as it explodes. So everything is like gone off the mold.
Until the next game, and then it was like, oh, some of it escaped.
Yep, actually, and if you think about it, since Rose, she didn't die. She basically was a copy of the mold from Resident Evil 7.
So some of it escaped. That's the next game right there.
Yeah, and a bit later you see that Rose has grown up and she is still alive and everything. But she has the same abilities as Evelyn in Resident Evil 7 had. And that means she is still the mold, but they just destroyed. But what Chris expected that he did was to destroy the entirety of the mold as well. So the question is, did Ethan actually die inside the explosion or not? Because his daughter is still alive as well. And both of them actually have the same molded basically the same mold DNA in them. So my question is, will we see Ethan return? Did he die or not?
They could pull a Jill with him and try and make him a villain.
That they could. So that is like the ending of the game, where you basically see Mia, not Mia, Evelyn is entering a car and she drives away as she's been sent off to a new mission, according which she got from Chris, because she got the mold inside of her and she's a powerful weapon and everything. So, and during the drive, you basically see that the car stops at the end of the road and someone, it looks like a man is actually walking down the road, which the car stops next by, and you don't see anything else. My expectation is that it was Ethan they saw at the end there. because if Ethan dies, then I would say Rose should die as well, because they got the same mold DNA inside both of them. So, but yeah, but we do know that they are working on a Resident Evil 9 already as well. So, how much of it is actually have been made and everything, we don't know. But they probably have the story or the plot fixed out for it, I guess. Like I said at the beginning, Resident Evil 7 and 8 is like closely connected in terms of story. Like the plot itself is like deep beneath the two games connected. So, yeah. That was basically the end of the story. So, do you have anything else you want to say to what I told about the story, or if I should try to explain some parts better, or?
It's less so explanations, but what I want to know is like, how did you find the game overall? Because obviously you've finished it.
Yes.
You stayed awake God knows what time on live streaming the whole game.
I loved it. I loved it. It is one of the better Resident Evil games I've played in a long time. And that comes from saying that I played the first two games when I was a little slindy. and
Slandy boy.
Yeah. I can basically remember just going into the police station or the mansion and shoot zombies, and I didn't know anything about the game at all. I just wanted to shoot zombies. And that was basically how I got introduced to the games franchise, just to shoot zombies. But as I grew older, I got a bit attached to the whole bioorganic weapons in the game. And that is basically what made me come back to the game each time as well, because I wanted to see the story, how it developed, and yeah, just how stupid they messed up and twisted they could make the bioweapons, more or less. So yeah, I loved the game a lot. And if I would rate it compared to its predecessor, like RE7 and 2 and 3 remakes lately, I would say that it's probably the best of those four at the moment.
That's actually quite a big
it does
accolade, given Resident Evil 2 remake is obviously really well thought of.
It is, and I feel like they went a bit deeper in the story compared to Resident Evil 2 remake. I'm not sure if it's because basically knew what happened in Resident Evil 2, because it is a remake, the story is already set, and Resident Evil 8 was completely new. No one knew what they basically went into. The same thing with 7, and Resident Evil 7 was basically one of the games which made me wanna start streaming as well, because it had this twisted feeling about it that when I played it, I actually wanted to, like, what if I streamed this and I could share it with somebody and talk about it in that way. And then someone from my class basically asked me why didn't I stream. You have this crazy aim in video games and everything, and he kept, I think it was he kept asking me for 2 to 3 months, and then in December, the last month he asked, and I looked a bit into Twitch streaming and so on, and then I just started. I had some small ideas what I wanted to do. So yeah, and then I just started from that. But apart from that, I did love the game. I think it brought a lot of good things for both old fans and new fans as well. So yeah.
I've only really got time for one more question today before we go into the ending. So that would be, do you intend to replay it, and do you think there's value in replayability in the game?
I have already completed 2 more times since last. So yes, I have. And I will probably do it a few more times. I only completed it once on stream. And here today, before the broadcast, I tried to not speedrun it, but I tried to do a quick playthrough of it. Like, just trying to go for the key items I knew I needed and so on. And for the replayability, I think it got a few good things that you can, like, go back to. Because if you want to unlock, like, all the old games, they have, like, all this about with unlockables after you complete the game. In the normal games, if you completed it like under 2 hours, you basically got a walker launcher and stuff. In Resident Evil 8, they changed that a bit. So how that works is, if you want to get a weapon with infinity ammo and stuff, you basically had to buy the weapon of the Duke, upgrade it, find all of the customized parts and so on, and then you can unlock a secondary version of ammunition, which basically gave it infinity ammo, and that requires a lot of playthroughs if you want to get all of the weapons unlocked with max upgrades and everything. So in that sense, I think it have a good replayability. If you are like an achiever, you want max items, you want max weapon upgrades for all of your weapons and so on. So, and with the 3 playthroughs I have of the game, I have basically unlocked, like, fully maxed out, I think 3 or 4 weapons, and I still have, like, too many to unlock still. So in that sense, and then the game also have the mercenary mode with where you also can play a bit, which is just brainless killing of the enemies in the game, which is pretty fun as well. But apart from that, I wouldn't say I have anything else to add to this podcast now, unless you have any questions.
Not that I can fit in within the time frame, because unfortunately I've spread myself kind of thin today with time.
Yes.
So wrapping that up, our announcements. We have our next podcast should be normal time. We might record it earlier, but we'll probably release it on the same. It could adjust, so the next one is kind of up in the air at the moment. So It will come when it comes. Don't worry, it's definitely coming. We're just having to adjust around our guest because different time zones, different availabilities, family life, etc. That will be regarding Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker, which, whilst that will be our next podcast, that won't be the next piece of content we add onto the channel, because Slandy and I are planning to do our reactions to the Endwalker announcements sometime, should be this weekend coming up, actually. And obviously that'll be put on the channel for everyone to take a gander at. And from that as well, it will gauge interest in other pieces of content onto the channel, which is something we're looking to do going forward. With other announcements, we've got, after this next episode recording, the recording afterwards, we should be adding our third permanent co-host to the podcast, which is something to look forward to. Obviously, we're doing some stuff in the background to try and make sure that transition goes well. For that podcast, the 8th podcast, that should be, we will hopefully be doing that one live as our first live podcast. We've created a Twitch account in which we'll obviously be doing that there. We'll put that in the description for anyone who wants to go follow it ahead of time. We've got our Discord finally done. So that's in the description of every single one of our videos, back all the way to the first video. And obviously you can join, and we'll put all of our announcements up in there. Moving forward, we'll start putting like our schedules, trying to be transparent enough that people can see when we're aiming to release the content. I myself should hopefully start streaming again soon, though I'm unsure whether I'll be uploading stuff to my channel or onto the Pretty Casual Gaming channel itself. Depends on how I have to link profiles to my PlayStation. But Slandy's helping me get a camera for my PlayStation, which should help me put out content. Video-wise, that could be anything from Final Fantasy to, just any game, really. Whatever I feel like recording at the time. I'll probably get into a swing of things and start to record stuff more regularly when I can. Other than that, I think there's all the announcements that we actually have, unless you can think of it, Sandy.
Nope, I think that was everything. Like you said, the next podcast we will be having a guest, and so yeah.
So obviously join our Discord, keep up on further updates. If we remember right, we'll obviously slam it up in there.
Yep.
So I'd like to thank Slandy beforehand for leading this episode. It's been the first one he's led, I think, since the first episode, in which afterwards I kind of took control.
Yeah.
So thank you for that, Slandy.
You're welcome.
And we shall see the rest of you on YouTube later. Bye, YouTube.
Yep. Bye.